Hey, friends, and welcome back to the Black Girl Flow podcast, where we chat about life, love, and identity. It's your host, Liv and Lex, coming back to your car, your earphones, wherever you might be listening to this podcast at the moment. We are currently in Libra season. Lexi, how are we feeling? What is your pulse check feeling like?
I saw something that said Libra season is just pre-Scorpio season. So I was like,
So disrespectful.
but it's so on brand. I love these are the moments I just love like all the zodiac signs because it just reminds me how like Leos do the same thing to Cancers and like there's always that like big energy. But either way, I'm with you, man. 2021 is it's going by quick, man. I'm just trying to. It's like the tortoise and the hare. And like 2021 was the hare, and I'm the tortoise, and I'm just trying to get there to the finish line?
To get through, honestly. It's interesting that I feel like my positioning, my feelings of Libras have obviously shifted over the years. I remember when we had first started the podcast, we were in Libra season, we were both like, boy. But honestly, I've got to say that I do enjoy some Libra company. I'm hoping that Libra season will treat me right.
I think it already has.
I'm not going to comment on that, guys. But currently, my pulse check is looking like I went to Afropunk over the weekend, which was such an amazing experience being surrounded by Black people, Black creatives, Black owned businesses, Black artists, Black fashion designers, just Black people. Like, I am always reminded how much I love living in Atlanta when I go to these sorts of concert festivals. And when I was younger, I used to go to them a lot more. But obviously, since I went to school out of state and the pandemic hit right when I moved back home, I haven't had the opportunity to really like chill and go out and experience all of Atlanta's lifestyle. So I'm always looking forward to those sorts of events. But also, speaking of Libra season, I feel like I've been hit by this wave of like an organization, like disorganization. And I'm trying to cope with that. Honestly, Lexi told me that we're apparently in retrograde. So that could explain if you all are feeling a little discombobulated like myself. But we're going to keep trudging along. Before you know it, 2021 is going to be over with and
Yeah.
we'll have nothing but the memories.
Also, way to dig at Libras being like this disorganized, scattered energy. But I definitely feel that in the like, I already have a level of indecision that lives within me, and it's like particularly amped, which has nothing to do. Like, I don't have a lot of Libra energy in my chart, but it just feels like so hard to make decisions these days. So I definitely feel that. I do think that you've grown in affinity. You've cut back on the Libra slander because I would say she has not cut back on the Leo slander, but the Libra slander has definitely taken a hiatus. So I'm proud of you. You've come such a long way. I hope all the Libras feel seen and heard in these moments. So
And
it's your time.
look, I feel like you, you know what? Let me just come clean, okay? So when it comes to Leos and when it comes to fire, I don't have any problem with anybody of the zodiac, okay? I don't. But obviously, we all have certain zodiacs that we prefer more than others. That's just the way the stars are made up. I don't have anything against Leos. I don't have anything against Libras, but obviously, like you're saying, it's because I dated a Libra, y'all. Like when you date one and you just get to know one on a deeper level, then hey, you just grow a little bit of an affinity for them. And look, Michelle Obama and Barack Obama, that's a Leo Capricorn couple. Maybe I just need to date a Leo and see them in a different light. But I feel like that would be
That would be a lot. I don't even think I want to see that. But I do have another I have a Capricorn in my life who's a male, and he's currently like talking to a Libra woman. And I literally was like, it's tough, isn't it? They were like, yeah. So I feel like because of your experience, I was really able to like speak into things that they were going through. If they ever hear this, they're going to be so mad that I mentioned this and they will know exactly who they are, but we'll leave that be. But I'm glad to hear that you're in the same place that I
Right. Honestly, well, what's been going on in your life? Like you were saying that you've been dealing with some decision making, but also just feeling like a little discombobulated as well. Last week you were like thriving, and I still would say that you're thriving still.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that sentiment. It's just that, like, with the newness of things, like, I think some people who know me really well know that, like, and I don't love to characterize myself as like ambitious and like a go-getter because I like think I'm really chill. But like I think as I'm like increasing the level of responsibility in my life, I'm like starting to feel it. And so like even with the promotion in my job, I'm like, wait, does everybody knows I like don't know what I'm doing, right? Like everybody knows like you really start to question yourself of like I was showing up to work and it's so interesting like how literally that title can shift so much like power and mindset because it's like I used to show up to work and be like it didn't matter, like it doesn't matter, it's not my like if this ship sinks it ain't on me. And
Mm.
now I go to work and I'm like if this ship sinks I'm the motherfucking captain. That shit's on me. And and
Funny.
it's like no wonder they pay you more for this. This is crazy. And so it's like starting to feel that and like making sure that I'm not questioning myself for the characteristics at which they saw me to be successful in the position. So everything from that to like the responsibilities of owning a home and like still the very much limbo, like I'm anticipated to have it at the end of the week, but like there's simply no guarantees. And I like literally told myself today, I was like, Lexi, if this does not work out, like it is not the end of the world. You've learned so much. Like this is so exciting still. Like you just have to be okay you with whatever the outcome is. So either way, leaning into those is kind of the both and like it's fun and roses, but at the end of the day, like it's still business as usual. So just like trying to keep up with, yeah, all of those versions of myself for sure. But that's like for the birds, you know.
She grown, y'all. She getting promotion. She getting a house. Like if you were single, I might just have to holler at you on that.
Speaking of that, Olivia, I think it's actually time that me and you define the relationship. I think it's time for us to move past the talking stage. And I would like to let you know that I want to take it to the next level.
Wow, I actually love that monologue. That brings us perfectly perfectly into our topic of today, continuing that love series of dating. We will be right back with you all after the break.
Why did you say after the break you could have been like, cue the track?
I should have, yeah, but it's okay.
Okay,
I'm discombobulated now. Anyways,
I really, okay, okay. So do you want me to lead into it?
yep.
Okay.
What were you gonna say?
I didn't know that. I think that was just it.
That I really
I don't
okay.
know. All right, folks, it's time. It's time for us to take the next step. I know. So many of us commitment phobes, not looking for the labels. I know. I am you. You are me.
I love that name, commitment phobes. I while. Thank you for adding that to my vocabulary.
Your vernacular. You're welcome.
Thank you.
But either way, for all of those out there the hopeless romantics, as Olivia has categorized herself as, the commitment, the self-identified commitment phobes like myself. It's time for us to get serious about the dating stage. So on this episode, Liv and I are diving into what does it mean to date? I personally think the talking stage is the most fun. I would argue that the dating stage is like so overhyped.
What are you talking about? Talking stage and dating, I feel like personally for me, it's really important to have a title on what we are so I can act accordingly. And that's what I think that everyone should kind of have in the back of their mind. Like when you have a title and it's not like, oh, I'm just talking to this person, being able to say, hey, I'm actively dating this one person makes things more clear, more concise.
It's
And
interesting that you say dating this one person because the thing is dating could be more than just indicating that you want to be in a monogamous relationship, but you do really emphasize the labels. But my question is like, how are you acting any different under labels versus not labels? And I think that's where I get tripped up, being like, how is this going to change anything? Why are we putting so much energy just on the label?
well, what do you feel like you've learned while your relationship now of putting things on the like having a label versus not having a label?
Y'all, I just want everyone to know Olivia just set me up. Okay. Are we okay with this, everybody? Are we okay with her just, roasting me like this in this way? Such a public manner. I'm like almost flustered.
Pushing the boundaries of vulnerability.
And
Because you're right, absolutely. There are different like ways to date, right? There are monogamous dating and then there which is a little bit more exclusive, but you can also date in a polygamous way and still be exclusive with
I think
a
we need to talk about that because I think, okay, just like there's stages and phases to dating like, in the single talking dating, I think there's like multi layers to dating. Like there's the I'm dating, like we're dating around, we hear that all the time, which is that like you are not exclusively dating somebody, you are actively going on multiple dates with other people with the intention to cultivate something or the interest to pursue something, or you could be dating exclusively where it's saying like I'm only really making time and space and energy for you. And then there's like relationship cultivation, you know what I mean? And so I think, at least in my experience, which I've been dating somebody for, I think like it's probably like been like six-ish months, probably.
yeah.
Would you like to chime in, Olivia?
I mean, I think this is the perfect conversation to really dive into things because with Lexi and with her partner now, she didn't want to put a title on it. They were dating exclusively. And she felt like, okay, time is a social construct. If we're together, we both know what it is and we can continue on some hippy dippy stuff. And I kept coming back to her. Are you like, is he officially your boyfriend? Like, what are you guys calling things? And so that's why we're snickering over here because she's saying 6 months ish, but there's not an actual date. Maybe there's a separate date for either one of you guys.
That would be really interesting. I think it doesn't matter to both of us because like we really based it off of like when we felt like there was like a level of clarity of intent. And I think the way that you said it, I really love it. Like we were dating exclusively without the labels of like boyfriend and girlfriend. And even my boyfriend, which like that still doesn't even feel apt. Like, because even that, I'm like, I don't know if that gives him enough of the credit that I want him to have. You know what I mean? Like, that still feels so diluted, which I think we could unpack a little bit more like why we had these labels. But I genuinely think so highly of him. He often calls me his lady or like his queen or like my girl or like things in a very endearing way. I unfortunately that doesn't like there's no opposite of that for a girl. Like I can't call him my guy or like Mr. Man or like and I just will not play into the trope of like my king. Like that feels so simpy to me. But you're right. We were dating exclusively and we were very clear about that early on. And that was like a big moment for us where I knew and honestly in theory, I said it first, but in practice, he actually did it first because we met on on a dating app. And he told me, he's like, I'm going to delete the app. Like, I'm done. Like, once he met me, he was like, I'm done. And he kind of did it for different reasons. He wasn't doing it because of me, but he was like, I'm getting off of it. And literally after our first date, like, I go back to his profile and his profile was gone. So technically, like that was him being a little bit more exclusive earlier than I was, but I was the first one to say, like, I'm not actively talking to anybody else. Like, I'm making it a priority to pour into you. But I was very much okay with that being one sided. Like, I didn't tell him, like, I want you to do the same thing. I was just like, this is what I'm doing, and here's where my head's at. And then it wasn't until much, much later that then people started being like, oh, so y'all boyfriend and girlfriend. And I was like, oh, I don't know about that. And then come to find out he
A month in for me, I was like, you guys are boyfriend and girlfriend. And she was like, I mean, and would just give me some
this was by the time we knew we were going to New York with each other that he was like,
taking flights together to different cities.
yeah. But and still like we even talk about it today where I'm like, I don't know, like that, like we don't really know when we can say like we really started dating. But huh?
Are you okay with that?
Yeah, of course. Just because like it's just not that fixed for me and like the emotions of it have taught me so much more than just like a moment. And I told him that. I was like, you know, I really expected you. And this is like even hearing the way that I rationalized it, I was like, oh, when we went to New York, I thought you were actually going to ask me to be your girlfriend, like verbatim. And when I told him that, he was like, there was kind of this shock look like, you didn't know? Like, I was taking you to New York. Like, and it's so funny because then it like makes it puts into context like all the like on all the tweets of like you buy her all these things like you get and all she wants is this like little really tiny affirmation. And I was like, exactly, which is why I was like, I let that go halfway through the trip because I realized that I didn't need you to say it because you were already doing it. Like the way you were treating me, the way that you were sharing your life with me, like I didn't actually need you to say, do you want to be my girlfriend? I knew how important I was in your life in that moment. And he was like, of course. And I was like, yeah. So in that moment, I was like, the label, it just simply doesn't bother me.
You are going to have these people caught up in this fantasy world. I promise you, Lexi, you are in the top 1% with this kind of situation.
Okay, now you say what your thoughts on the labels. Tell your experience with the labels because this is also important.
Look, y'all, this is really on some homegirl Kiki vibes this episode because we're really about to dive a little bit deeper into that. Every day I get on this godforsaken TikTok app, okay? And I see people that were in Lexi's situation being like, oh my goodness, you know, you tell me your dreams and aspirations. I meet your friends. You're at my house every day. And now all of a sudden you're not ready for a relationship, but we've been talking for 6 months. And so it's like this idea of not putting on a title on things or not expecting that title is going to get you caught up in a space in this really weird gray area for some guys to take advantage and be like, okay, I can have my cake and eat it too, because we could definitely be talking exclusively, but in my head, we're on two completely different pages. I think for you, it played out well. Even that an older man, okay, but they got things going on for them, you know, that they're a little bit more intentional. But I think definitely when it comes to younger people,
Yeah.
I'm talking about 22.
And don't get me wrong,
Nearly.
I was in that same mindset because even when you asked me like why not put a label on it, I was like, because you never know what's gonna happen. Like I was playing my cards cautionary. And so I think I was in that same frame of mind that you're talking about of like this person could say all these things and do all these things, but at the end of the day, if we're not really tied to each other like that, you could go. So is that what the label brings you comfort in? Is like having that security? Like that you actually have to break up with me if you want to go?
You know what's interesting? Because I've had this conversation about marriage even, okay? So let's say that you're in a relationship with somebody for 6 years, okay? And it's like, you
Mm-hmm.
know, you want to get married. And in their head, they may want to get married, they may not want to get married. Neither of y'all have had that conversation on what that title, because it's like marriage, honestly, is 50% title, 50% name, in my opinion, okay? People these days are literally having kids with their partner without needing that title to be married. So obviously, it brings comfort to the person that's like, okay, if we're married, that means that you're literally gonna have to go through a whole lot to get divorced from me or to get separated from me. Obviously, in this case of dating and in a relationship, I think having a title brings comfort to both parties because it allows them to say, okay, we're on the same page about what this is. And that communication aspect really makes or breaks a relationship in any phase of, you know, of
Yeah.
what, like, you even recognizing, hey, I was cautionary, like that.
Yeah.
I think that's normal, but I don't think that that's something that.
So then how are you different in a relationship? That's what folks need to know. And we all, you've already shared with listeners that you're newly out of a relationship, but you were in a relationship for a year. So it's like, and I would argue, I would categorize you as one of my friends who's like does well in a relationship.
Lexi says I'm the worst single person, y'all. I think for me, I am a little different when it comes to navigating dating, as we've talked about on the podcast before. When I meet someone, I like to have some FaceTime conversations. Like, let's say I met them online, I'd like to have FaceTime conversations with them. Then we'll meet up after they pass the vibe check. We'll hang out for a bit. Honestly, third date potentially, I want you to be around my parents or I want you to be around my friends just so that they can see, like we can kind of cut this off early, like, because I honestly trust my parents' judgment, okay, when it comes to being with someone, but also
I'm getting heart palpitations.
also for safety reasons. Okay, maybe not the third date, but like a month in,
Okay.
my parents. All right, just because I want them to kind of see who you are, see what your demeanor is, and I trust their judgment. And I also think that just by my demeanor, people have told me that I have very girlfriend, wifey energy. Like I'm not someone they would look towards if they wanted a casual hookup situation, which I feel no ways about, but like also it's interesting. I think that I emit that energy to guys. But when it comes to dating, I think I make it very clear about what it is that I'm looking for, what it is that I stand for. And we kind of nip it in the bud, I would say, like month two of, hey, like you're going to be my girlfriend or boyfriend, month three at the latest.
Yeah.
But the time, I think I move quite quickly. I move quicker than most that I guess people that are
He
dating.
said, honey, here's the handcuffs.
Not even, I just think that it's important for us to be on the same page about what we're doing. I didn't even realize that there were some people that we're in these talking stages for
Months.
months on months, and still not
Months.
what exactly they
Yeah.
wanted out of it. And
I even knew guys who were like, I want to do all the things about a relationship, just not have the label. And in my mind, in that case, I'm like, yeah, at some point you can't have your cake and eat it too, because it's like there's something about a relationship that requires cultivating intimacy. Like if you really want it to be a successful relationship, like, and I think that's really where the commitment to something is
right,
different, because it's like if you're just in the talking stages and like you're kind of in limbo for forever, you know what I mean? Like you don't have to actively put too much, it's just about sustaining it. But it's like when you're in a relationship, it's about building something, it's about growing, it's about cultivating, it's like actively engaged in it. So I do see what you're saying when you're like, we need to be on the same page about what we're cultivating, like what we're doing. Because what I'm not going to do is sit in limbo with you and just play house, right? Because that's going to take my energy, it's going to take my time. And I think you're so good about knowing what you can give, whether that's in your social battery, whether that's as a lover, like what you can and what you cannot. And so I do think when you say it that way, I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right with that. But I do think then that that's also the piece of it that's where people start getting into that self sabotage when they don't know how to communicate how intimidating it is to like meet the parents, meet the siblings, meet the friends, like all of those things, because you don't really know. And I think this is some part of it too, of like you don't always know what you want going in. Like there are some people that I'm like that they've written down their dream man, and we could talk about that all day long. Whatever floats your boat, sure. But it's like it will come for you when it is for you, no matter how many times you write down a piece of paper. Yes, the universe responds to energies and frequencies, but like if you're vibrating in a lower energy, like write whatever you want on a piece of paper. But in my opinion, it's like you don't always know until you're in the situation, and then you don't always know how to communicate what you need. And so it's also sometimes just about asking for that processing time, because then when you're interacting with family and you've had some situations, like it's not always super positive, and it's hard to like bring more cooks in the kitchen. But again, at least I can now see the value of if you have the label, you have that to go back to being like, okay, but what are we doing? Okay, we're doing that. Okay, cool. So we're not going to get hung up on this, that, or the other.
right. And I think going back to that self-sabotage piece, especially for people that have come out of situations, relationships, talking stages that were not very positive, and they're used to being treated a certain way that like negatively impacts them. They when they finally meet someone that is treating them well or that is going out of their way to do things, there's like the psychological switch that goes off that's telling yourself, hey, I'm actually not worthy to experience what this person has to offer me. And so therefore I'm going to like be destructive every single time somebody, like every time this
Oof.
particular person tries to like make a grand gesture towards me or tries to
Yeah.
with me, I'm going to find little bitty things to point out and ghost them or
Liv,
let
you are
that take over.
talking to somebody, okay? Okay? Because that's exactly what you're saying is so real. And I'm curious to where that happened in your relationship or if you've ever experienced that. Because I think that goes to my example of like, I was this huge display of affection and care and commitment. And I was still internally questioning what his intentions were, because I was also experiencing that level of like, this is too good to be true. Like, this can't be exactly how, like, huh? Like, and I think right, like when you internalize trust issues, when you don't know how to communicate, like the ways you need to be affirmed, like, you start to, and I love this because like Island, it's like you start to make up stories in your head of like, oh, this just can't be. And the other person's not privy to those stories you're telling yourself in your head. And then that can become exactly the wall, the barrier that you create, or like the nitpicking or whatever, that then becomes, you know, in the way of you getting to the thing that you desired in the first place. And sometimes that doesn't even register because it's happening so quickly, you know? Like it's about, oh, he didn't text me back at this time. Oh, you said you came late. Like what was this, that, and the other? Like you are in the trenches. You are in the trenches.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't necessarily say that I've dealt with a situation where I've purposely tried to self-sabotage, but throughout my relationships, I've had to really cultivate like inner confidence for myself. Because I remember my first relationship, like in high school, I I would tell my like parents, oh, is this person out of my league, or and
Mm,
on the same level. And on paper, we've got everything. We're both very attractive people, but even having that kind of rhetoric going around in your head, is this person out of my league? Am I worthy? Like it still stems from some sort of psychological issue, or lack of confidence within that tricks you into believing, okay, maybe I need to find someone that is, you know, lower, lower,
yeah.
good,
Yeah.
lower on the scale, and on
Yeah.
the scale that you have. And my parents had to really like train me in a way, or just
Just
call,
coach you or support you.
yeah, call out that thinking. But in general, I think when it comes to healing after breakups, right? And I know we'll get a little bit more into this in our next episode, but healing, I've definitely been in situations where it's like, okay, I didn't realize I was still healing from this past situation, but now things are coming up in my new situation, and I'm trying to like sort out my feelings, and deal with them the best that I know how. So
Yeah.
that's about my experience when it comes to self-sabotage and just experiencing lack of confidence. And to all of the women out there, or just all of the people out there listening, like I just really want to emphasize just how worthy you are of true love,
Mhm.
of grand gestures, of chivalry, of like comfortable intimacy that you feel is trustworthy and loyal, all of those things, and don't allow yourself to be in a situation that you feel drained
Yeah.
after, after interacting, or someone that makes you feel belittled in any sort of way.
Retweet, 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 repost the whole nine. Um, so, um, and I think my final takeaway too is that like this builds on itself. You know, we talked about like owning your singleness and then communication and boundaries in the talking stage. And now I think what we're talking about is like now that you have that communication, you have these boundaries, now you're building your boundaries with somebody else. It's about finding balance, like where you don't lose all the work and concept that you have of yourself when you were owning your singleness. You don't lose your ability or the safety of cultivating clear communication. And you're really in relationship with people at which you feel like there's that balance. So you feel that everything that you described about that type of love, like that security, that safety, that empowerment, like being in a relationship that empowers you, it feels supportive, and you're able to give that back, like that to me is everything. And it takes work. Like
That's
as much as the TikToks want to make it seem like 45 seconds, like it's beautiful because it's a display of work and commitment, actively choosing. And as somebody who that commitment was really intimidating, and I've learned more about myself in this process than I ever could by myself. Like it's worth every single piece that makes it so sacred of like if I lost it tomorrow, it was worth every ounce of my time. But I also at the same time want to be intentional about cultivating that space further. So it's like I wish that for all my sisters and beyond, you know?
I love that. And just to quickly touch on that social media piece, y'all, please do not let social media fool you out here in these streets. Don't be a victim to the my man pays for my rent. What does your man do? Like the comparison games, because it'll only get you into this really awful black hole of thoughts of, okay, I need to raise my standards. I need to do this. Like Lexi said, it's literally all about finding balance and what works for you in your relationship and what dynamic you put in place. So, love all of those things. Thank you all so much for joining us on another love episode. We have our letting go or settling in episode coming up where we get real spicy talking about breakups, talking about just marriage and the generational differences, a lot of hot topics in that one. So please don't miss out. And as always, the conversation continues on Instagram at Black Girl Flow Podcast. So please make sure to let us know your thoughts there. But that's all that we have for you this episode. And have a wonderful rest of y'all's week.
Peace, love, blessings.
Catch y'all later.
Bye.